What's going on, guys, and welcome back to F1 2021 for my team career mode, round number 8, the Austrian Grand Prix. So this race we won last year is our first win of all, and we won it in the last season. So I had pretty high hopes for this race. You know, it's a track that I do generally seem to be quite good around as we go ahead here putting our activities in. And I do make a little bit of a mistake doing my activities here because I don't quite realize how much room I've got. And you see here, I put all those activities down. I've still got all that room there and only a 2-day activity left to put in there, but I, for some reason, don't put it in. So that's something I accidentally forget to do. We redo a durability upgrade that didn't come through last time we tried it. And then looking at R&D, we're still at the top, but Red Bull now closed up to second. And yeah, I mean, the rest of that group still as close as they ever are with the rest of them behind. Now, I made a big mistake once again with qualifying. I accidentally didn't change all my components from practice, so it's happened again. We won't be taking part in qualifying, which means we're going to be starting from the back of the grid. So let's see how this goes.
This is it then, race day in Spielberg for this year's Austrian Grand Prix. Not long to go before our drivers hurtle off the line and into the first turn, the Niki Lauda curve, as it was renamed in 2019 in memory of one of Formula One's most beloved figures. It's a short lap here in Spielberg with just 10 corners, 7 rights and 3 lefts, making up the total distance of 2.6 miles. And expect to see a lot of cars running wide today, especially through the last corner, as the wet conditions make the cars skittish through the downhill sections. Now, Anthony Davidson, I wonder, might we be in for some early pit stops today from the midfield teams, all trying to put some pressure on or disrupting things for the leaders up front?
If you're in the middle of the pack, you got your own race to run, I don't think they're going to be thinking about causing trouble up front. However, closer to the head of the pack, don't be surprised to see some split strategies. If you're running second and third, for example, bringing one car in for an undercut while leaving the other one out there longer can put a lot of pressure on the leader and maybe force them into an error.
Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's race. Sergio Perez will lead us away from pole position, with Daniel Ricciardo slotting in alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Giovinazzi, Leclerc, Max Verstappen and Sainz, Hamilton, Norris, Joe and Pierre Gasly, Ocon, Lundgaard, Valtteri Bottas and Tsunoda, Fernando Alonso, Vettel, Lance Stroll and George Russell, Latifi, Mick Schumacher, Mazepin and Shaw. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track.
Alright, so here we go. It is a wet Austrian Grand Prix this time out. I believe our first wet Austrian Grand Prix. It is raining at the start. We're on full wet tyres actually, which I was a little bit surprised about. I thought we would have been starting on intermediates, but it's actually heavier than I expected it was going to be. And we have actually got a wet setup on the car. So one thing about doing qualifying is I wasn't sure, going into qualifying what sort of setup I was going to run. But in the end, I didn't take part in qualifying, so I ended up just going, you know what, we might as well just stick a wet setup on the car. So that's what we're doing as we go up through into turn 3, I guess this is the hairpin. We're going to dive up the inside of George Russell going into the hairpin, but then we're squeezed to the inside, and that lets Russell and also Mick Schumacher go round the outside, and we're still in P20 here with Mazepin and Latifi behind us. Bit of a gap back to them. I think they may have had a little bit of contact through that section, and now we're going to try and just keep behind these guys, but it's wet. I don't know what the AI do with their setups. I've said this before. Do the AI actually put wet setups on their cars? I don't really know, but I have got a wet setup here. One of the reasons why I wasn't really sure whether I wanted wet or not was because looking at the forecast, it was going to be wet at the start of the race, it was going to come dry in the middle of the race, and then there was a potential possibility of rain right at the end of the race. And I mean, this is a track that honestly needs quite a lot of straight line speed. It isn't the most technical track in the world. There's only like 10 corners, so yeah, I wasn't really sure, but I ended up going with a wet setup in the end, so we'll see how that works out for us, as now we're sizing up Mick Schumacher going through the front straight into turn 1. We're going to dive up the inside and brake later into this corner. He tries to keep it around the outside, but we just about managed to get the position on Schumacher. We're up into P19, at the end of lap 1 onto lap 2. Next up, we've got George Russell to get back past again. This is honestly going to be a fight through the field because of my complete screw up in qualifying. I really need to stop doing it, where I, accidentally don't do qualifying because of not changing my components, as we make a beautiful round the outside move on George Russell into turn 1. I really need to stop doing that. I was actually a little bit distracted while doing this race. Usually I do the races when there's nobody else home. My girlfriend was home at the time and she was behind me talking and doing whatever she was doing, so I was a little bit distracted. It was also quite a warm day. It's been very warm in Australia at the moment, so yeah, a little bit distracted and just all that sort of stuff. As Lance Stroll makes a mistake going through the final corner, we give him a little bit of a bump. I'm just going to check to make sure we've got no damage. We don't seem to, but we make the move on Lance Stroll, and now he's getting overtaken by George Russell, who goes round the outside through turn 1, and they're going to go side by side all the way through this big uphill straight going into the hairpin. They're still side by side. Stroll on the inside, Russell on the outside. Neither of them are gonna give in though, as they're still too wide going through the hairpin and out onto the next DRS zone. Of course, though, DRS not available right now, but this is actually letting Schumacher somewhat catch up behind them. I think that's Schumacher there doing a pretty good job in the Haas, as these two still side by side right here. An amazing battle between Stroll and Russell, but in the end Stroll just about manages to defend the position from Russell. As now we're going for Stroll's teammate Sebastian Vettel. We're not going to quite be able to get him into turn 1. We're up into P16 now, as my engineer just said, and we're going to try and get the slipstream on him going down the uphill straight here, going up the straight. I don't know how you want to call it. We're going to dart to the outside. He very much squeezes us to the outside there as well. We're going to try and brake later. We're going to try and go round the outside of the hairpin. We get a better run than Vettel, and we're up into P15. And it's the two Williams now ahead of us, doing a pretty decent enough job here. Not quite in the top 10, but still doing decent, as Bottas gets a pretty poor run out of that corner there, and we managed to dive up the inside of him. We're just going to brake later and get him up into the second to last corner, and we're actually going to come into the pits now with a lot of other people, because it is now time to change onto the intermediate tyres. My team wanted to go for the change on the next lap because Daniel Ricciardo actually came in on this lap, but he was so far in front of us that I felt like there wasn't really going to be a disadvantage to coming in on the same lap as him, and there was maybe a slight longer wait as I got into the pit box, but it really wasn't that bad, as now we have Fernando Alonso in the other Williams up ahead of us. We're going to push him, force him to the inside. We're going to try and go once again around the outside. He gives us a little bit more of a fight than some others have into turn 1, but we just about managed to get past, and we are doing well in these wet conditions. But I am a little bit worried that if and when it does start to get dry, we may lose some pace, because in the wet here, it does seem like I've got one of the better setups. A lot of the AI don't seem to, at least in my opinion, have gone for a wet setup, or at least not as crazy a wet setup as I have. So I'm a little bit worried about when it gets dry, but at the moment we're trying to make moves in the wet as we get very close to the back of Pierre Gasly, who's currently running behind his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. We're having a little look through here, but he gets a pretty decent run. We can't do the same thing we did on Bottas. Just checking my heads-up display, because we did get very close to the back of Gasly's bumper there, but I don't think we quite managed to touch him, as we now are right up behind him. We're forcing him to the inside once again into turn 1. We are really forcing him to the inside. This time we're going to duck to the outside right at the last second. He's going to keep with us side by side, but once again we just get that overspeed. We get the move done through turn 1 up into P12. It's now Yuki Tsunoda up ahead of us, Gasly's teammate, and we're going to make a pretty similar situation work here. Make him go defensive to the inside, get right up to the back of him, go to the outside, brake later, and it's a little bit of an easier overtake perhaps on Tsunoda than it was on Gasly. We're up into P11, 1 point away from a points paying position, and the driver in the next points paying position is Esteban Ocon. He is in P10, and we're going to try and see what we can do on him. Nothing is able to be done into turn 1 this time, but now we've got the slipstream going up the hill to the hairpin, and we're tucked up right behind him. We're going to dive to the inside. He slightly moves over to the right. It's very, very close between myself and the Frenchman, but we get a beautiful dive up the inside of the hairpin, and we're up into P10. We're into the points, and now it's time to crack down, knuckle down, and see what's going on, see how much we can catch the other guys. But a little bit of an issue as it looks like the rain is starting to slow down and it is getting dry. The team says come in next lap for drier tyres, so we're gonna do that. We're on to a set of medium tyres. Now my team says to go for a set of mediums and then change to another set of mediums for the end of the race. There is the chance of a little bit of rain in the last couple of laps, so I don't really know what's going to happen there with tyres, but I think I can maybe get to the end on mediums instead of going on to another set of mediums. So we're going to suss this out and see how we go. As you can see up ahead, you can just about see Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari up in 9th place. We are actually catching him a little bit up until this point, but now the track's pretty much dry now, so it's going to be interesting to see what our setup's going to be like in this weather. As we have a look at, I think this is Pierre Gasly, yes it is, going for a move on Esteban Ocon, so it looks like he's managed to get past his teammate of Yuki Tsunoda, or Tsunoda's way up the road, and Gasly's now trying to make a move on Ocon. He couldn't get him into the hairpin, but they're now going to go 2x2 into what I guess is turn 4 or 5, I don't really know, and Gasly has managed to get the move done on Ocon, which I think puts him up into a points paying position. Oh no, it probably doesn't actually, because we're in P10, so he's in P11 there. As now you can see the gap between myself and Sainz up ahead has grown. Unfortunately now it's full dries, everybody's on full dry tyres, there's not a single drop of rain on the track. And that's really hurting me because my car is set up more for a wet setup, so I'm pushing as hard as I can. I'm absolutely pushing so hard here, and I mean, I know that I have good pace at this track. We were pretty damn good last season. I mean, we won the race and we had very, very good pace, that is for sure. So it's not me in this track that's the issue, it's the fact that I've got a wet setup, and it's mainly down the straights here. I'm just losing so much time down the straights because of the drag I've got on the car. We're still pretty decent through the corners, but yeah, down the straights, definitely losing time in this dry stint. So I'm hoping that the rain is going to come back towards the end of this race, as we watch on with, I believe, Lewis Hamilton. He's trying to make his way past one of the Red Bulls, and yeah, he's doing decent. I think he's in about 5th place at the moment, so Hamilton not had the best season so far. I think he might have had 1 podium this season so far, but no more than that, and really has not performed as well considering he was the champion of last season. So he's going to be hoping for a decent race here and the rest of the season. As we continue on through, we have a back marker, and we also have Nicholas Latifi, whose engine goes up in smoke right in front of us. It's a similar story to Carlos Sainz in, I think it was Imola, wasn't it, where his engine went up in smoke in front of us. This time though, it was Latifi, and we were lapping him, and we just lapped Mazepin at that point, as well as now.
Rain is inbound, and we're expecting it in around 5 minutes. 5 minutes till the rain. Dries seem like the best tyre for now. Okay, gap ahead is 4.0 seconds.
At this point here, I'm just constantly checking with my engineer to see when the rain is coming in, because he's saying rain's coming in about 5 minutes, but at the moment it's still looking dry. As Max Verstappen is off the track there, we gain a position up to P7 actually now, as Sainz and Guan Yu Zhou have both come into the pits for a change of tyres, and we just watch a replay here of Verstappen. He just gets it a little bit caught up through that corner there, and very scary re-entry here as well, reversing on into the track. We watch it on board, but yeah, just a little bit too much throttle, and yeah, just spins himself around. I mean, it's fully dry now as well, so this isn't a wet weather problem. It's fully dry on track, but he's having issues here. As we watch on with Carlos Sainz and Guan Yu Zhou, like I said, these two have come in for another pit stop, so they're now behind us, and Carlos Sainz is going for a move on Guan Yu Zhou up the inside of the hairpin here, and they're still side by side though. It's going to be a nice little race towards the end, but it looks like Carlos Sainz has got the DRS, because that is now of course available in the dry conditions, and it looks like he has got the position on Guan Yu Zhou. But these guys are quite quickly catching up to me. Of course, my team wants me, there I am, just there, just see me in shots. The team wants me to come in for another pit stop, but I think that, you know what, I think we can push the mediums to go to the end, or we're going to change onto wetter tyres right at the end. So I'm just kind of going as quick as I can here, but now you can see the clouds are coming in, it's getting dark, the rain is coming back, but Carlos Sainz has caught right up to the back of us. He's only 2/10 behind. He's going for a little look on the outside of the hairpin. My tyres are not too amazing at this point here. He's on much fresher tyres than me, and he's got a better setup than me as well for this dry weather, but I'm really hoping the rain just keeps on falling here and it does start getting heavier as we are just defending for our life against Carlos Sainz and Guan Yu Zhou here, just absolutely parking my car as much as I can, going quite wide through there because the tyre wear is getting bad. The rain is starting to mean that the dry tyres are still not great, as Guan Yu Zhou is looking at a move on Carlos Sainz behind, but he doesn't make it move. He doesn't make the move stick, and Carlos Sainz now once again has DRS on me, and he's gonna try and catch up to the back of me, but it's gonna be difficult going on to the final lap of the Grand Prix here. It is most definitely wet now. You can see all the rain coming off the tyres there. You've got, I think that is Max Verstappen, who's managed to catch back up to these guys after his spin a few laps ago. But now Guan Yu Zhou has gone for a spin through turn 1 there, and as we carry on up the hill, Carlos Sainz once again on the last lap is going to have another look round the outside into the hairpin. We're all on dry tyres here though. Nobody wants to come in to change onto wet tyres because it's just too late at this point, but it is rather wet right now. Carlos Sainz trying to see if he can catch up to me here, but he can't quite do anything at the moment. Max Verstappen is behind as well. Antonio Giovinazzi goes on to win the race. It's his first win in Formula 1. He didn't manage to win a race with Mercedes last season. He's won a race with Red Bull this season. I think that makes it 6 different winners in 8 races this season, so that's a pretty good statistic, as I'm just trying to fight the car. It is so difficult to drive with these medium tyres in these conditions, but we have a look behind us here, and Sainz has gone for a spin, and Verstappen's gone for an exactly identical spin to Sainz. As we look at a above view here, look at them, they do exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing that Verstappen did earlier on, but he does it again here with Sainz in the wet. Just so difficult to keep these tyres. I mean, didn't even go hard on the throttle, just spun the car around, and really unfortunate for them. I believe they will get overtaken by Guan Yu Zhou, who you just see coming around the final couple of corners there. Yeah, it's been a pretty hectic race, this one. We didn't qualify because of a complete screw up from myself, and we're still going to come home though to finish P7. I think that's a bloody good result considering how this all went. If the race stayed wet the whole time, I think we could have been on for a top 5 finish here, but unfortunately that dry stint did screw us over a little bit because of our setup. But P7, I'll definitely take that after qualifying.
Victory for the team from Milton Keynes then, after a quality performance. Tell me, Ant, how did they manage to achieve this win?
Well, tyre management probably played quite a large role in the outcome of this one. As ever, it's not just about speed, it's all about maintaining that speed consistently over a stint, over a race distance. So being able to keep up the lap times while still being smooth on the controls and gentle on the tyres, that's really where the race was won today.
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everyone at the team.
So it's a great day for Red Bull at the Red Bull Ring. Antonio Giovinazzi comes home for his first win in Formula 1. Sergio Perez is up there to make it a Red Bull 1-2 at the Red Bull Ring. And Daniel Ricciardo, a former Red Bull driver, comes home for 3rd for my team. He started in 2nd, so it is a step back, but still a good result from him, and that pushes him further ahead of me, and also closes the gap on Leclerc at the top, who finishes P4, so it's a decent result from Leclerc, but yeah, he does lose a little bit of ground at the top of the table. Like I said, we finished P7 and in the end there, so I think that's a pretty damn good result, all things considered. In the drivers' standings, not a whole lot of change at the top. Giovinazzi moves up to 5th. He's now ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez, and Lando Norris actually moves down to 7th. You've also got Christian Lundgaard moving up there. No, sorry, that's Guan Yu Zhou moving up, Lundgaard moving down. And then in the constructors, Red Bull actually move up into 2nd place. We're still up at the top. McLaren 3rd, Ferrari are now all the way down to 4th. So Ferrari looking really strong at the start of this season, but Sainz has had ridiculously unlucky races this season. I think he's only had 1 podium all season so far, and we're halfway through the season now. And Leclerc had a great start, but the car seems to have teetered off a little bit in this mid part of the season, so they're going to be hoping they can pull it back and at least give Leclerc the Drivers' Championship. But I think it's going to be a close one. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.